Today's guest is a true jazz legend, bassist Putter Smith. Born in Bell, California, and inspired by his brother, he began his musical journey at just 8 years old and debuted at 13. Over his illustrious career, he's performed with icons like Thelonious Monk, Duke Ellington, and Art Blakey. Also contributed to recordings by the Beach Boys and the Righteous Brothers. Beyond music, he also made his mark in film as Mr. Kid in the James Bond classic Diamonds Are Forever. So, Putter, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me from the West Coast.
Thank you for asking me. I appreciate being recorded.
No, no.
Yeah.
So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was, the names I've listed, Thelonious Monk, Art Blakey, the true these are the jazz icons that, people the names that just people know, not even just jazz musicians, but they're known and just in general in society. So,
Yeah,
I
go
mean, you've
ahead.
you've gotten a chance to work with these true jazz masters. Are there any things that you took from, let's say, Thelonious Monk, that like music lessons that you carry with you today when you're still playing, just from those experiences?
Oh, yeah. First of all, Thelonious is presented generally in the press as a very eccentric, kind of weird voodoo type cat, completely wrong. He's a real good guy and a real good guy and lots of heart. And he was eccentric in that he didn't talk much. Almost everything he said was very, succinct and very, very rare. But he responded always responding to the moment. I asked him one night. I said, I worked with him 2 weeks in San Francisco, 2 weeks in Los Angeles. And then one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in my life was he called me a year later to work with him, a couple of weeks in Seattle and a couple of weeks in LA. And I had a young family and young children and no money. I mean, not no money. And Thelonious was paying at that time 150 a week, which included everything, except that he would pay the airfare. And uh, at the same time, I had gotten a call from John John Mayall, to make $3,000 for 3 weeks in Australia. And I had taken that. Then when I got the call from Thelonious, I said, well, I can't. My wife was like, go with Thelonious, go with Thelonious. And I so wish I had gone with Thelonious. It's one of the biggest regrets of my life that I didn't take that second tour with him.
Well,
But go ahead.
regret is, kind of useless in some ways. But even you said you worked with him for a couple of weeks. Now, even by today's standards, it's, for a jazz musician to get even a couple of nights in one club is pretty rare. So it's like almost what the experience you had with him for a couple of weeks, that would equate to like having like a weekly residency somewhere for a year or so. You know what I mean? Like, it just, these
Yeah, I
opportunities
know
aren't there.
it's life has really changed. Well, you were asking about lessons I got from him. Uh, he he really liked my playing, and that informs me. When I play, like hey, Monk took me, and uh, one night I asked him. I said, when we play, well, you needn't. Sometimes you play F sharp, F sharp, and other times you stay on the F and you have an expanding fifth. Say which do you prefer? And he says, mix it up. And that's like, wow, baby. I mean, that's like, yeah, mix it up, dude. Because this is real jazz. This isn't classical music. And I'm not putting classical music down, but
When you played with him, were there any things that maybe it caught you off guard that you didn't expect in real time, that you had almost had to adapt the way you play, or you were just in the moment?
no, I was very familiar. The first record I ever went to hear was in the old days. They had record stores and they had little booths where you could take a record in off the rack and listen to it. And go back and buy it or put it back on the rack. And the first record I ever got was Thelonious Monk, Blue Monk. And so I had been listening to Monk seriously all my life. I was around 30 at that time. Maybe I was 27, 28, I can't remember. And uh, so I was very familiar with him. And the very first tune we played in San Francisco, which I didn't get the chance to meet him. There was no book. There was no rehearsal. It was like in the dressing room, he was smoking and spinning around like he did a lot, and at one point he stopped and looked at me. He says, "You the new bass player?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "White is right." And I knew everything was cool because I know his humor, that it was like I knew everything was cool. And then
Were
when we
you
got
playing along with the record? Like you said, you had bought his records. Were you practicing with the records? Or
no,
just
no,
listening?
no, no, I never did that. Um, Although I did that with my brother was with Jerry Mulligan Quartet, with my brother playing bass with Chet Baker and different drummers, and I would play along with those. And
Hmm.
people would come over, I was a kid, I was 11 years old, 12 years old, and my brother had left a half-size bass at home when he went to New York when I was 8, and uh, I would play along with that, and so I didn't know anything. I didn't know the names of notes. I didn't know the names of the strings. I didn't know chords. I didn't know anything except I knew what it's supposed to sound like. And so I'd play along, and my friends would go, "Yeah, man, yeah, yeah,"
So it was
and
just all by ear, really.
all by ear up until I was about 14, and then I began the serious study of music. And in those days in high school, I went to a school that was seventh or 12th grade. They had a class called harmony, which is the study of current counterpoint. They didn't call it that or even mention the word counterpoint, but that's what it was. It was the current state of counterpoint. And so I spent 5 years in that class, 4 years, 4 years in that class. And the last 3 years of it, the teacher, she just left me alone in the room and to play and mess around and write and stuff. And anyway, the serious study of music. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but is that
No,
enough?
it's all great. That we don't that's jazz, right? We just go off in one direction. But I want to bring it back to just when I mention some of these names, it's I'm sure you feel incredibly lucky, and but I wanted to ask you now at this point in your career, what success means to you. Because the world is changing all the time. Sometimes people view success as just to really work and play the music they love. Sometimes success would be that you got a chance to work with certain people. But nowadays it goes to like, oh, I played at this venue or this follow. So what does success mean to you at this point in your career?
Success. I wonder what that is. I don't know. It's a I devoted when I was 16. I have Indian background, American Indian Cherokee and other stuff, and so I became enamored of the finding your totem and your spirit animal and all that sort of thing. And I was having, the thoughts you'd have and you'd attribute them to spiritual messages. And I remember I was 16 and I looked at the bass and I said, "This is what you're meant to do with your life." And I've just followed that. I'm still doing that, and I'm, that's what I'm doing. I'm playing, I'm practicing, and I'm in my pre-dotage period. I cannot function as a regular working musician. I do about 3 performances a week, and then I do my regular regimen of practicing every day. And although I'm at the point when I say pre-dotage that occasionally I'll take a day off, and it used to be once every 3 years I would take a day off. And now it's like I take a day off, yeah, maybe once a week. And and it's success. I don't know. I guess I'm successful, but
You're definitely successful.
you know,
Unquestionably. I just want to hear your take on it. But when you're 16 years old, you're still so young. I mean, most people aren't thinking about that. They're going to devote their life to this craft, this art form, and being a musician. So you kind of equate it to it was a spiritual calling in a sense. And
that's how I saw it, and I just went there and I had lots of stuff in the meantime that wasn't part of that. I mean, like when you mentioned the Beach Boys and the Righteous Brothers, I was bass player for a while. I took up electric bass. I was a piano player. I worked with Don Randy in Hollywood, and was a great guy. And I played kind of like I can't think of the name. Randy, you name think of Randy. Randy, kind of a funk piano player. He had a TV show for a while.
I'm not
Eh,
sure. I'm not sure.
I can't think of his name. And anyway, Don played that funky style and everything, and he was Phil Spector's contractor. And Don told me uh, if I got an electric bass, he could get me some recordings. And I said, okay. And I didn't know who, I didn't know anything about that music. I had never been part of that music. And uh, so I did, and I started working with dozens of these people that are now famous. And people say, "Oh, you're on that? That's classic." No, 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 that's not classic.
Well, that's
That's
interesting you
not.
say that. Did the electric playing influence your acoustic playing? Because like I was listening to this recording of you playing with Alan Broadbent, the Moment's Notice um
Okay.
record,
Well, I think everything influences you, and what influences me now. I mean, I wore out two vinyl copies of Saxophone Colossus, Sonny Rollins. I mean, actually turned them gray with
from
vinyl.
listening
Yeah,
to from the
seriously,
record. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and uh, in fact, at one point, and that was when I was in my teens, and it was just just because I loved it, listen to it over and over and over and over and over and over, and then next thing you know, 25 years go by, and I'm established in my mind. I feel like I've got my voice, and I'm playing from the heart and and the brain, and
Well, I
and,
mean, put it this way, like when I hear you play just a couple of notes, like it's just it can even just playing two notes, you can just feel something there. At least I do. So I greatly
oh,
appreciate it.
thank you, thank you, thank you. That's the whole idea, I think, and that was one of the things about
I mean,
being
you
in the
kind of need two
recordings.
notes, right? You hear one note. I mean, two notes works a little better to get you into the flow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Who's that guy? Who's that guy that's playing out of tune? The which is what as a bass player, intonation is it's what I work every day. I work on intonation every day. I mean, here it is, 75 years later.
You think more about practicing intonation than quote unquote time, so to speak, like just getting the
I have
that.
I have gone through all sorts of periods, and right now I'm because the last recording I'm working on, when we heard the first playback, I was shocked at how out of tune I was. So I've been working on intonation for the last 4 or 5 months, and I spend the first 10 minutes or so of my practice working on intonation and all that other stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, can I ask you, was there a particular moment in your career, like a performance or record date, where you started to feel like you were finding your voice, or it's like, okay, I'm here now? Because that's the thing that for artists to get over that, it's like they almost kind of like they need to just get over the mountain, so to speak. Did you have any moments like that, or has it just been like a gradual process? I'm kind of curious.
Well, no, I was committed to the task, and I did have moments, and I was committed to the task, and the rest of it would just be improving my technique. And I spent a year playing every night with Warren Marsh, and I had a session
Man,
house, and we would be every night, and I felt like maybe twice. I felt like I was playing with him. The rest of the time, I was I didn't, I wasn't with him, and uh, like that, and you're just committed to the art, and you play, and that's what your life is. You're committed to the art, and uh,
So Warren Marsh was working with him. That's where you started to, because he would play a lot of those tunes that they're like standards, but they write the different melodies over the
he didn't play much of
chord.
that. One night, Don, God, this is pre-dotage. Uh, Don Ellis came up
Mhm.
with three other trumpet players, and they played, let's see, what is it, Lenny's Pennies, uh, and they all started on a different beat, like, and it was really marvelous, really marvelous. But that was a period of playing every night, and uh, you get to a point where you just play, and you don't, it's coming out, or it isn't, or it is, and it's. I
I
feel
think
like
it's
I'm.
it's got to be the live performances that, because you can't substitute that for playing by yourself. You know what I mean? Or, it's
Oh
got to
yeah,
be.
no, no, it's a group thing, and I focus in on the drummer, and I'm hearing off the side. I'm hearing the other things and the chords and everything, and I'm at a point now where uh, uh, I have a different outlook on chord changes, and I'm still very attached to the original chords and everything, but I have so many possible substitutions, like say a G7, you could substitute D flat for that, a flat five sub, and
Tritone, right?
then you could play the instead of playing just the five, you could turn it into a 2/5, and you could play A flat minor seven to D flat seven, and then the next thing you know, you can just play on the A flat minor seven,
Well, I heard Hal
And
Galper say that like the best jazz musicians, they took the chord changes, but they wrote their own chord changes over the original set. That's the way he
yeah,
said it.
but I think that for it to really sound decent, it has to be strongly related in your mind
Hmm.
to the basic G7, I mean, you may be playing, all these other things, and having all these other thoughts, like, and but in your mind, you're still thinking of the regular thing, the regular chord change, and I mean, they're like kind of like
No, but
signposts.
it's interesting you're talking about this because like I'm kind of like just exploring. I mean, I'm a jazz guitarist. I'm kind of exploring the idea of like if the key is going to resolve at the end of the 4 bar phrase, that okay, I know need to get to. I know it's going to go to the F major chord. Like I'm totally just going to be totally just play across the neck of the instrument, like almost kind of random until I can land on one of those chord tones, just to see, like, it's like if that helps me just get out of my own mind. And this is just something I'm experimenting with for fun,
There you
like,
go. There you go. There you go. And different substitutes for 2/5. Like here's one of that is out of rock and roll is say in the key of F. Instead of going a G minor seven C7 F, you play these what they call, I think they call them power chord. You play a D flat and then an E flat and then an F, real
yeah, yeah, yeah.
strong. Okay,
Hmm.
but that's a definite substitute for 2/5/1. So at that point, you're able to play all the stuff you could play on an E flat seven substitutes, which includes an A7,
Hmm.
and so uh, I mean, you just have this. So what's really happening is your part of the brain is thinking uh, technically, and the other part of the brain is playing what you hear, and it opens up what you hear. You say, "Gee, I'm hearing that, but I can't justify playing it, so I don't play it."
Mm.
And then when you learn enough, you go, ah,
You know,
ah,
I know, I think part of the battle is just, um, how do you say it? I'm kind of like thinking like playing what you hear is like, but being courageous enough in a sense to just totally just move from what we're supposed, you know what I mean, the chord scales, and that sort of thing. But really, like having the courage to do it, I think is half the battle. I mean, uh, I don't know how you feel about that or not, but
Well,
that's a big
it's courage. Yeah, courage. Yeah, courage. Yeah, I agree.
like, do I have
Courage,
the like? This is what I'm hearing, but do I have the courage to commit to it in the moment?
the courage to commitment to it, but also just keep broadening your knowledge of how everything works. Like uh, I recently, not recent, to me, a guy like me, anything in the last 20 years is recent. And I was asked to teach a class in counterpoint at the Musicians Institute. And so I got the book gratis. It's named in honor of Hoops. I don't know how you say his name. The original book, gratis ad Pananasum. And I went through that book 3 or 4 times before I began the class, and I learned a lot. I mean, I went, oh my God, wow, look at that, and used it a lot. I still, a lot of that stuff, it opens up a thing like, okay, now that note is okay. That note is okay, like that. So if you hear that note, it's okay to play that note. That it's almost like your mind is a sensor machine telling you what you can't do, and when you're in it, and I see, I'm not a believer in free playing as a basic thing. I think a little bit of free playing is charming, and there's some people that can play really beautiful for short periods of time. I heard Vinnie Golia and Bobby Bradford play a duet once, and it was just beautiful. It's beautiful, But then I want to hear Olio or something. I want to hear some tunes, and
Yeah,
it's
I think that's where even Bill Evans talked about that it can get almost like an infant in its cream, screaming in its crib or something like that. The free play.
a what?
Oh,
What?
Bill, in a
I
Bill
don't hear.
interview, Bill Evans was talking about free playing. Is like it could almost be like an infant screaming in its crib or something like that, and it didn't feel it was organized enough at the time. So I
Well, yeah,
understand what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
yeah, I get it.
We
We get
want
it.
to hear music. We want to hear music.
Music, music, what the world needs now.
Definitely.
Jeez.
When you performing, are there certain aspects of yourself you feel only come out on live performance, like personally, like maybe certain emotions, whether it's joy or just like you said, it's all comes down to like a spiritual thing. Is that, part of what keeps you going?
Well, that's what keeps me going in and practicing my scales. Uh, most fun I have in life is playing those things. I mean, I'm 84, and I had a wonderful, wonderful wife for 55 years, and she passed away. And uh, the most wonderful thing I do is play. I mean, with people.
Does it give you a sense of healing, when you play?
Oh yeah, no, that's what I do. I mean, that's what I am. That's who I am. I think, that's who I am. That's like highest and best use.
Well, I feel like this music, we heal ourselves, but we can heal the world with it too. Um, in a sense, I like to think of this music can open up people's minds to the possibilities of life. They might go hear jazz and may not get it right away, but then they say, "Oh, like anything's possible." Look what they're doing, and they can, they don't have to go play jazz. They can do something else.
Well, I agree with you in one way, and what I see is the lack in America uh, about music is that they're cutting back and trying to monetize everything, and the thing where they fall down is in the education system. That it used to be every high school. I'm talking, I'm 84, so I'm talking about 75 years ago. Every high school had a symphony orchestra, and every high school, and they had marching bands and all that kind of stuff. And they provided instruments, and you could enroll in the class when you were eighth grade, and they'd give you an instrument to learn, and so people were there was a tremendous thing about music which is not there anymore. And I suggested to a friend of mine, a great trumpet player named Chris Price, classical, great, Jesus, wonderful player. And he was teaching, he teaches the second grade, or maybe he's retired now, sorry. That when they have the thing where they say, okay, now I want you to work on his math for half an hour, put on Tchaikovsky, put on Kabalevsky, put on this, and then the next week put on Mozart, da, 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 and then next week put on da, 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 and give them a background of, and I feel like having grown up with a background of classical music in my house, that allowed me to understand Charlie Parker. Because if somebody hears Charlie Parker, they don't get it. What's
Right.
he doing? What's he doing? What's Coltrane doing? What's the Coltrane? And so you have to have some kind of a background, I believe, and
What the
this
world
guy
needs is to
Solzhenitsyn. What's
what
that?
what the world needs is more music in the schools.
Well, that's what America needs. It's
Definitely.
shocking. And I mean, jazz is much more popular in other countries than it is here. Here it's a joke or the butt of a joke, like
Fringe genre, I heard. It's a fringe
I
genre.
hate jazz. It's a what?
A fringe
Say
genre.
say that again.
A fringe music.
Yeah, I don't know. Does it come up to the level of French? It's more like a stain, you know. Yeah, it's you hear it very commonly on television. Say, "Oh, I hate jazz," and very common statement. I hate jazz, and I must say, I hate jazz too. Most of what I hear, I don't listen to a lot of stuff. Most of what I listen to stuff that grabs me, and I'll focus on it. Right now, I'm listening to a thing called Jerusalema, and it's an African thing, and I'm analyzing it, and it's Jesus Christ, what wonderful music, wonderful music. When I listen to it, I mean, I'm hearing it all the time. I'm hearing it all the time, and all that'll go away. But see, when you talk about influences, yeah. And then I had a Brazilian singer by the name of Nana Caymmi, and that just killed me, and somebody said, uh, a student had asked me about bossa nova, and I answered the thing, and I said, well, it's bong, 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 and then I saw a guy in the front row, he was kind of shaking his head like, and I said, well, so I said, well, tell me, and he says, no, you got to listen to this record, Brasileiro. So I got the record, and it's an anthology of Brazilian music, and it was put together by Sergio Mendes. And geez, it was so good. It was so good. And then I met this other guy. I mean, I knew this other guy, and I said, man, it's Mars Laero. And he says, have you ever heard of Nana Caymmi? And I said, no. And so he made me a tape, and so I listened to it, and I said, well, she sounds kind of flat, but good. She sounds good, but flat. But I don't know. I think there's something there. And because of this guy, because this person I respected, John Curry is his name. He's a film director, and so I listened to it again, and that same thing. Well, she's a little flat, but I think there's something there. And again, because I respected this guy, I listened to it a third time, third day, and I went, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" And I became a slave, a slave. I listened to her for a year and transcribed some of the stuff rhythmically. Jesus Christ, Hanukkah Amy.
Yeah.
And so I'm really active in pulling new stuff in, but it grabs me.
It has to
It
grab you is
grabs
the
me.
point. It's not like you just it
And
doesn't have to.
yeah, it grabs me, and then I want it. And much of what I hear is like I go, oh, that's really good. That's really
Yeah.
good. But you're doing really good, really good.
No,
But
this has been such a great conversation. I'm hoping we can do it again. I mean, I really appreciate your time, and like I had mentioned, I hear you play two notes and it can affect me, and and I
well,
really
thank you.
appreciate you being with me today.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll talk later after the show. We'll talk on the phone and I'll get your address and send you some CDs.
Oh, beautiful.